Welcome to the Rock and Wellness Podcast, the show that takes you on a voyage to better health, wellness, and happiness that will rock your world. With me, Rachel Joy Olsen, your host, your coach, and your biggest fan. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Rock and Wellness Podcast. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing a special guest, my good friend, Patty Minall. Patty has been in the legal profession for over 30 years. She has a background in training dogs in agility, obedience, and has even had some of her dogs in movies like Shanghai Noon with Jackie Chan and in some commercials. Patty is a certified health coach and vegan enthusiast, and you will today hear her story of how she came to this way of life and the struggles she has had to endure to get there. And she loves to keep herself busy and her mind sharp by playing the clarinet and learning other languages like Spanish and French. Over this time, Patty and I have become really good friends, and we always say how blessed we are to have someone in our lives who really understands our way of life and accepts us for who we really are. Those types of connections can be hard these days, so it's really important to cherish those relationships we do have. So, Patty, welcome to the Rock and Wellness Podcast.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm really excited to be here and really honored that you have invited me.
Awesome.
And this is also in keeping with my Patty rules of never be afraid to try something new. And this is my first real experience of being involved in a podcast other than just listening to them. So this is fun. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, Patty, I wanted to have you on the podcast as a special guest because you have a very inspiring story that I believe listeners will be able to relate to and be inspired because of it. From what I know of your story, you have come a long way in your journey to better health and wellness. And because of your choices, you have been able to completely transform the trajectory of your health and your life. So would you be open to sharing with the listeners your story and what sparked you to make some of these changes?
Yes, absolutely. And just last night I was thinking as well, before I just get into my story and what catapulted me into the change, I wanted just to also share that when I was in my 30s, I had health issues that I just sort of decided were part of the aging process. I was working in a very stressful legal position job, but I had irritable bowel syndrome and acid reflux, an extremely nervous stomach. And nowadays, of course, we know all about the microbiome, but 25 years ago, we didn't have a clue about that kind of research. I had adult acne that started as a teenager, but when I was 40, I had acne, big, huge lumps on my face, my chest, and my back. I was really sedentary due to my job, working a lot of long hours. So I had sore joints, and I had a rotator cuff injury that never would heal. I was so stressed out and on all the time that I didn't have the ability to even deal with stressful situations, let alone even identify them. I think I was always in a hyper alert system. And so, of course, all of that created the lowest of self-esteem that you could imagine. So there I was, a stressed out, slightly overweight. I never was obese, but I weigh a lot less now than I did. And and so that's the place where I was at in my health when things changed for me.
Okay, well, I know you speak a lot about the importance of prevention. And of course, you just talked about some of the health issues that you already did have, but I know both you and I both believe in the power of prevention. So for example, we often say, why wait until you have cancer to make changes? Why not do everything you can to prevent it from coming in the first place? So what is it that made you decide to change your mindset from one of living life day by day and just accepting the things that were happening as a result of age to shifting to a I don't need to live like this and accept these things kind of attitude.
Um, my mother had breast cancer and she suffered for 5 years. And then after the 5 years, where they always say, if you last 5 years, you beat cancer. Well, bone cancer happened with my mom. So she basically was in bed for a year and suffered immensely and passed away. She succumbed to her breast cancer. And all the while that, and I live in Calgary, and my mom was in a hospital in High River where my mom and dad had moved to. So I was driving to High River after work and seeing my mom in the hospital, driving home, having 3 or 4 hours sleep, going to work. My sister, Debbie, lived in Chilliwack, and she came up as often as she could. But every time she came to visit us, she had severe acid reflux and was drinking Pepto-Bismol, chewing on those Divol tablets, any kind of antacid she could get herself into. She always had a really upset stomach. And one of the last times I saw her, I actually looked her in the eye and I said, you got to find out what's wrong with your stomach. This can't be right. She would wake up in the middle of the night and have to relieve pain in her stomach. And unfortunately for our family, 4 short months after my mom passed, my sister Debbie, who was only 44, died with pancreatic cancer. And that just shook us all up. And for me, it was like a really huge awakening, because my sister couldn't breathe one night. And so her husband took her to the hospital. And what it was the pancreatic cancer had spread to her lungs. And they found out basically that her cancer was everywhere. But she died 19 days after the diagnosis. So there she was, living all of this time in pain, and we didn't even realize how bad it was, but there she was, dying right in front of us. So I knew that if I didn't make some severe changes and quickly, I was going to have to fight that fight. And I didn't know if I would have even been able to do the 19 days. I do truly believe that when my sister found out it was cancer, she gave in. She saw mom suffer, and she just let go and let God. She just left us. But one of the things the gifts she gave my sister Terry and I was, she had an autopsy done on her when she passed. Her last wishes were an autopsy. So here I am knowing all this legalese, and I went to the doctor because I couldn't understand the autopsy report. But basically her whole body cavity was full of cancer. So you never know what's going to really happen. I took charge of my health, and I had this sort of theory already that hereditary loads the gun, but lifestyle will pull the trigger. And I knew I had to find out how not to get cancer, because I was 42 at the time, and my mom was 64, by the way. So mom was 64, Debbie was 44, and I was not going to go that early either age. I started to read books and talk to people and study cancer survivors. I wanted only science. I didn't want to know stories, because stories didn't cut it with me, being a little bit of a type A personality. And fear is a great motivator, but the fear turned into what I always refer to as a G.I. Jane syndrome. I started to fight back, and I thought, you will not get me. This is not happening, not on my watch. So that's kind of the place that I was at.
So, Patty, what would you say then? So, let's go over these a little bit more in detail. So, you said that you turned into GI Jane and said, "This is not going to stop me. I'm going to make these changes." So, what would you say were the top 3 things that made the biggest impact for your health and life in general? So, what were the top 3 things that maybe you did to shift the trajectory of your life? So, let's go over those one at a time, if we could. So, what would you say maybe the first
Hmm.
thing is that
Uh,
you did?
yeah, the very first thing I did was I totally changed my diet. I already was eating a lot less meat because I was a single woman, and it's really hard to make a full meal of potatoes, veggies, and meat and that sort of thing. So I always did have quite simple meals, but I totally took out um, my meat immediately. It wasn't an overnight thing, though. Changing your diet is really hard, and you have to do the compound effect, just do a little shift and another little shift. But I did just totally take out the meat. I took out pop. We used to have free pop at the office. So I could have 2 Cokes a day and not even think about it. And at the time, it was funny because I used to think a Caesar salad with chicken on it was a really healthy meal. And I learned that, yeah, the romaine lettuce was good, but everything else, not so much. And you got to remember at the time, I also had irritable bowel syndrome. So changing my diet to adding more vegetables, especially, was really hard on my stomach. And I don't know if this is the place that we can even talk about these kinds of things, but food would go right through me, and I was always on the search, on the lookout for a bathroom, like, oh, we're going to go out, is there a bathroom when we get there, and that sort of thing. So I had to learn what my stomach could handle. And then as my courses went on and as I started to learn more, I learned the values of smoothies. Is a pre-digested food, so I could add those greens that my blood really needed. And I just started being able to add salads in, and then I got really good at making really cool salads. And no dairy. I never missed cheese because somewhere along the line early on, I learned that avocado was a good substitute. So I would have an avocado instead of mayo. And back in those days, I don't even know that we had mayonnaise and a lot of the vegan substitutions. So there wasn't that for me in those days. But I lived on a lot of sandwiches that were made with tomato, cucumber, lettuce, and a nice whole grain bread. So I totally knew I needed to shift to plant-based diet. But Rachel, I got to tell you, the really cool part about that was, here I was trying not to get cancer. I was going to eat to not get cancer. Then one day I looked in the mirror and I'm like, just a sec. And there were no zits anywhere. And then I realized my irritable bowel syndrome was getting better. And I was different. I was calmer. I was gentler. And it all just sort of came from what I was eating, which reminds me, I have to tell you this little poem. I found this along the way in my journey, and I love sharing it whenever I can get anybody to listen to me. This is Dr. Susan Silberstein, and she wrote this really nice little book called Hungry for Health, and it just has a lot of healthy recipes in it. But she said, and this really resonated with me, she said, our ancestors ate like this. They ate roots and fruits, seeds and weeds, greens and beans, with a little bit of wild game and fish thrown in. But now we eat cakes and shakes, pies and fries, chips and dips, and meats and sweets. And that really resonated with me because that's where I was at. I was a sugar addict. Me and my thinking that, the Caesar salad with chicken was a good idea. And I had to totally shift to think like my ancestors, and that's actually what I did. So our risk of disease goes down if we eat more plants. And for me, with my health getting better or improving, I started also learning that if you eat a healthy plant-based diet, your risk of other health issues goes down as well, like heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, stroke, cancer. We can make huge changes by just shifting in what we eat. So that was the first thing that I did.
That's wonderful. Yeah. What about the second? What else did you do?
The second thing that I did was I simplified my life. And that included making better choices with the people that I hung out with. And I let go of relationships that didn't serve me. And that was really hard. I also stopped doing activities that didn't fulfill me or serve me as well. So I had this attitude of, if I can't go, yes, I'm in, that sounds like fun, the answer was no, because life is so short. You don't want to be drugged along to something that you're not going to enjoy, where you're going to bring yourself and others down. So my time became very valuable, even to myself. So I just continued to do things that served me better. And I really focused on more quiet times. And that was a huge struggle, to be hyper stressed out, always worried about the workload that never went down, and still to this day doesn't. But I was able to learn to just sit quiet in that and be more gentler to myself and forgiving to myself.
I love that. So a little bit more spiritual practice, almost just connecting to the
Hmm.
self. What would you
Yeah.
say the third top thing was that you did?
And that's kind of what the third thing is about as well. I just found I had a better connection to myself, and I started practicing a lot of gratitude, and I became true to myself. So I guess my 2 and my 3 kind of roll into the same. But as I became true to myself, I realized I had had a lifetime of listening to what everybody else was always telling me. And then I started wanting to find my own answers and find my true self and who was I. And a curiosity became deeper and deeper. So at this time, I'm still taking these courses, and all the courses I took were correspondence, just so you know. I never missed a beat. I had to work. So I was doing all of this at night. And I just stopped explaining or trying to explain to people why I was making the changes. I just kept going. And I didn't justify myself anymore. I just decided to get to really know Patty. I got really comfortable with being myself, and my self-esteem started going up to the point where I started going on some adventures. Um,
What were some of
I
those adventures? Why don't you share one of those adventures with us?
oh my God. I don't know how I found out about woofing along the way.
And what is woofing?
Woofing, I can't remember what the acronym is, but it's like the Worldwide Organization of Farmers for something or other. So basically what you do is you go to a foreign country and you pay somebody to work for them. And I think I found out about it on David Wolf's website, or I met people through, David Wolf used to have a website where you could connect with people, or maybe he still has it, I don't know. But anyway, I decided I was going to learn Spanish, and I was going to Costa Rica, and I wanted to learn about gardening in a different kind of environment because I love gardening. So it took 2 years to put my plan into place, but I took Spanish and at the University of Calgary, and my Spanish is so bad, but I still love it. And I started really working out and just getting ready and hanging out with raw foodists and just getting ready for it. And so I went for 1 week in May 1 year and loved it. And what I did was I worked on a raw food retreat For the first week, I went there just to try it because I knew I was going to go twice in 1 year. And it was amazing. I worked in the kitchen, basically helping prepare total off the grid, raw vegan meals for cancer survivors and their families. They would come to Costa Rica and just wanting to connect with Mother Earth. And it was so fulfilling to just meet these people and be part of just cooking a really healthy meal for them. And then I came back and I saved some more and went back for another 4 weeks in December, and worked my holidays with work around it, and was able to go back for another 4 weeks and do more of the same. I did the coolest things. I got to see pineapples growing, and I was going up those mountains in Costa Rica with stuff on my back as a mid-50-year-old woman. And I was, running circles around the 20-year-olds. It was so much fun. I looked after worms, which got me really interested in working with worms and vermiculture, permaculture, planting trees. I just had the most wonderfulest time. And I knew I would probably only get to do something like that once. So I just made the best of it. And yeah, so that was one of the crazy things I did. And I still to this day look back on my experience and go, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I lived off the grid in the mountains of Costa Rica. And so.
Pretty cool that you were able to do that though, right? And able to do that
Yeah.
because you had made some of those choices
Yep.
to take better control of your health.
Yes, I could not have done it had I not been in better shape, been better mentally. Getting off a plane and walking into a foreign country when I'd never traveled before, and having to speak Spanish and be this, Canadian woman all by herself, no tan, just walking off and then finding and getting on it. It was really amazing. So you have to be physical, mental, just, spiritually ready to do stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, it was the time of my life.
That's fantastic. So Patty,
Yeah.
what are some recommendations you can give to listeners based on your own experience of going through this that will help them realize that it's never too late to take charge of their own health and to take action on doing so? What are some of those things you can just, leave people with today?
The one thing that I had to learn was be yourself, and everybody else is just going to have to adjust. And pray for peace, but prepare for war. That's part of my taking action and living a life of prevention. And I am not perfect, people. I'm so not perfect, but I always get back on track. If I ever fall off the wagon, I always try to get back on track. And I always remind myself my biggest asset is my health. So if money comes into the fore, I just go, it's okay. I'm healthy. I'll be able to work till I'm 100 if I have to. And that really makes a difference for me.
I love that you mentioned about not being perfect, because I think so many people try to live their life in that perfection realm. And I know that one way I like to think of it as being perfectly imperfect, right? Not striving to be perfect, but just embracing the fact that we're not going to be perfect and no matter what we do, but just to get out there and get moving and get going.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's funny because you said I play the clarinet and speak Spanish well. I play the clarinet. I play 8 notes on the clarinet, but it's all about my brain health and trying to keep my mental fitness up. But it's not perfect. It's so far from perfect, but I love it. And it gives me joy when I can play Mary Had a Little Lamb and some little tunes. But yeah, we can't, if you try to be perfect, you take on too much too fast. And I have all these analogies in my life, but one of them is if you put all these balls in the air, if you start juggling all these balls, if you say, okay, that's it, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, I'm going to drink more water, I'm going to divorce my husband, I'm going to eat more plants, and I'm going to quit my job and start riding a bike. Well, what's going to happen is you're not going to drop one ball, you're going to drop them all, because you can't. You have to take it slowly. Forward is forward, no matter what the pace.
I love that. I love
So,
that. So Patty, what do you suggest, or what are your thoughts on what someone can expect? So let's say we've got a person who is maybe living not so healthy of a lifestyle. They're feeling unhealthy. Maybe they even have some chronic conditions like you did. What can a person in this situation expect as they make the shift from that to a lifestyle that's a little bit more healthier?
um, when you do start to eat plant-based from a sad standard American diet, you are going to actually detox, and your body's going to shed a lot of the junk. And one of the other things too that I learned, and when you eat a more plant-based diet from a less, like a more um, um, from a really bad diet with white rice and white bread and white foods and meat, there's no fiber in there. So when you add plants, you're going to take on more fiber. And fiber, its main role in my studies is to gather up and escort out toxins. It also has some nutritional value, but its biggest role is to get stuff out. And sometimes people who aren't in a healthy place and not eating a healthy diet don't have good bowel movements, and they're going to find that they may detox because the fiber is going to start pulling things out, and your skin may get worse before it gets better. And detoxing is like a flu-like symptom, and it can be uncomfortable, but you have to keep moving and keep it up and keep drinking the water and keep loving yourself. And one of the things you taught me was to look in the mirror and go, damn girl, you look fine today. So you've got to find that place in yourself to do it. You can't expect anybody else to do it for you. You have to find it from within, and you have to want to change more than you want to stay the same. So watch all of the Netflix movies like Food Matters, and if you can handle the ones on animal abuse, do it to educate yourself. I can no longer watch those movies. I know what I need to know. And just educate yourself and be open to learning new things and doing new things, because it's new. And if you're not embracing and having fun, it's going to be hard, because you'll be able to fall back into old habits.
Right, but almost also embracing the struggle, right? Kind of like a
Yeah,
caterpillar
yeah.
turning into a butterfly. They have to go through the struggle of getting through the cocoon. It's just like, if you were to help that caterpillar break through that space, or the butterfly as it's trying to come out, it dies, right? So it's really important to
Yeah,
also embrace the struggle and stay positive in the present moment while it's happening.
exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to sit on your hands and rock back and forth if you want that chocolate bar, and just know that better days are ahead. And my journey wasn't 6 months. I continue on the journey, and I'm now 62 years old. And I look back at the 30-year-old with all of those health issues. I feel better now today and have more energy and clarity, brain health, than I had back then. And so I know it's never too late to change. And you can start today, right now,
That's
just
right.
by putting away the pop and having a drink of water.
That's right. It's never too late. And just one step at a time, one day at a time. Because, like you said, now you're in your 60s and you're probably healthier than you ever have been. right? I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, you look back at 30 and think, wow, I'm healthier now than I was then. And, that's often not the case, right? People often look back and go, oh, I was so healthy in my 30s. What happened? But it just goes to show it's never too late to take charge of your health. So, Patty,
Yeah.
any last thoughts for the listeners? Any fun quotes or last thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
I guess the one thing I did forget or I miss saying so far is do try to get enough sleep and rest. People say, "Oh, Patty, you're just always on the go. You're so busy." And I am. I'm always doing something, but I never miss a good night's sleep. I strive for 7 hours every night, and I do get my sleep and my rest. And I one day a week will unplug where, yeah, I'll answer my cell phone if someone's phoning me, but I don't check emails or Facebook. I just unplug and get grounded. And I think that's really important to rest and recoup yourself. And like I've also said, you have to want to change more than you want to stay the same, and nobody can do that but you. And I also, the one thing I have that really drives me is I have a motivator. I have pictures of people that are older than me that are running marathons, or I have one particular lady that I admire, and she's in her 70s. She's a Calgarian woman, and she is a model now. And I knew her back in the day as a legal assistant. And now she's 72 or something, and she's modeling. And I have a picture of her out of a magazine taped to my mirror in the bathroom, because you got to find something that drives you, and you can go, I'm going to be like her. So yeah.
Yes, having that nice motivational piece, whatever whether it's a quote, whether it's someone else that you're looking up to, but like you said, finding that drive, so important.
Yeah. Yeah. So reboot yourself all the time and find affirmations that speak to you, because not everybody wants to play the clarinet and speak Spanish, but you may want to have a canasta club, or I don't know what, some kind of different kind of exercise, but just do what drives you. Find out what you did when you were a kid and try it again.
That's
And
right.
yeah.
Well,
And
thank you, Patty, so much for taking the time to be here with me today. It's just been a pleasure to listen to and share your story with the listeners. I'm sure you've inspired someone today. And if someone wants to check out what you do for your home business and how you help people gain better health, where can they go check things out?
well, I guess I could just give you my email address, and that way anybody who wants to talk to me about anything, because I'm always up for making new friends as well. It's just Patty Minall at gmail.com, Patty with a Y.
Wonderful. So Patty
Patty.
Minall at gmail.com. I'll add that to the show notes as well.
Sure.
So thanks again, Patty. I look forward to chatting again soon. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Well,
So
thank you.
oh, you're welcome. So thanks for everybody for joining me on this episode of the Rock and Wellness podcast. I hope you were inspired by Patty's story. I know when I was when I first heard it, and continue to be inspired to this day. Perhaps you have a story like Patty's, or you find yourself stuck in a space in your life that's no longer serving you and you want to change. I encourage you to visit my website at rjowellness.com to learn about my signature Love Yourself Healthy program, where I help you break through whatever it is that's holding you back from transforming your health and life to be where you desire. In this program, you'll learn the essential tools you need to make better lifestyle choices in areas of nutrition, physical activity, and exercise, and finding vision and action steps, and so much more. So visit rjowellness.com and take your next step towards better health, wellness, and the life of your dreams. Until next time, my friends, keep rocking your wellness. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Rock and Wellness Podcast. Make sure to visit my website at www.rjowellness.com, where you can subscribe to the show and check out all the show notes. While you're at it, if you found value in this podcast, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about it, that would help out too. You may choose to join the R.J.O Wellness community to take advantage of the freebies, courses, and coaching that will take your voyage to the next level, or support this podcast with your monthly membership. Until next time, my friends, keep rocking your wellness.